What's up, guys? TMFers, how you doing? Let's go with another video this week instead of one. I want to get better at putting up these videos here on YouTube, and I think this calls for a video because I have my DEXA results in, which is a phenomenal experience. Shout out to Paige with DEXA Fit. Highly recommend if you are near Ashland and Foster, go check out DEXA Fit. Paige will hook you up. Yeah, so got in there, and I brought along, where'd it go? Brought along this guy, because this Skulpt, let me put away this drawer super professionally. This is what I've been gauging my body fat with up to this point, and I do it every morning, and maybe it's just because I have an older unit, or maybe some because you have to apply water to it every time you use it. Maybe some water seeped into the hardware. I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just this inherently inaccurate. In the packaging, it says it's within 1 to 2% of DEXA, and that's not exactly what I found today. Again, I take 3 to 5 measures every morning and average that out to get a true measurement, and my readings, they were consistently trending positive, and I had gotten down to what I thought was roughly 14-ish%, but that's not what the DEXA said. So but up to this point, I've been using this daily, and I think I'm still going to be using this daily. I might actually pick up a newer one and see if the readings are any different. That's the one advantage over something like this. It's portable. You could do it multiple times in the morning, every morning. And I'm not sure if my measurement technique is off or whatever, but the trend still ended up being the trend, just shifted up slightly higher because, as I'll explain in a minute, I'm going to be focusing more on weight change rates, which will be based on calorie intake and then how the scale weight will change as a response. Anyway, so I've been using this, and this told me I was under 15%, and I was like, all right, when this tells me I'm firmly under 15%, I'll go and get a DEXA to confirm that. And as a minor caveat, I did kind of mess up my shoulder, so I took a additional, now this is my second consecutive rest day because I don't trust myself. Just going back into the gym, I know I'm going to be a dumbass and use my arm. So I'm going to give it another day. But in general, I will say if I take a rest day, I eat a lot less. Therefore, I will hold generally less glycogen. However, I noticed this morning I actually weighed like a pound or two heavier after a rest day. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I am dealing with a pretty good amount of stress. I'm trying to open my business. I'm trying to understand this marketing course that I'm taking, and I'm trying to prep. So these are all very, very tough things that are kind of weighing on me at the same time. So maybe it's water weight, maybe it's stress weight, who knows. So let's go through what we found today on January 27th, which is a full 9 weeks of prep for me. So I've gone officially from my first weigh-in at 192.6 to 184.6 by DEXA. So that's a loss of 9 pounds, and I'll pull up the rest of the data so I have it here while I'm talking to you. My total mass was 184.6. Body fat percentage was 17.4%. Not quite 14.3 or whatever my Skulpt was saying. Actually, just minutes before I actually went on the table, and the test itself only took about 6 minutes. Before I went on the table, I actually tested myself right there, and it read 14.9. So within a couple of minutes of time, this DEXA showed 2.5% higher than Skulpt. And Paige did tell me that she was probably expecting a little bit higher of a result than the chisel would indicate, because DEXA incorporates organ mass into account, so this may or may not do that. I'm not exactly 100% on the science behind I'm not exactly sure. I know it's not BIA, bioelectrical impedance, but I do not actually know how this goes about measuring muscle and body fat percentage and how that's separate. So um, maybe if you take out the well, no, that wouldn't make sense either. It would be lower regardless or higher regardless. So either way, this underestimated my body fat percentage, whether it measures organ mass or not, bone mass or not. Um, so 17.4% body fat, and so what I've done retroactively now is go through and check all my weekly averages and just add 2.5% to that, which again isn't gonna be an exact science, but this is just an estimate based on one reading I have for the DEXA. If I follow up and it's another 2.5% low, then I could pretty much be safe to say it was systemically 2.5% low. It's just more of an estimate right now, but I'm okay with saying that maybe I could work backwards and just add 2.5% to all the readings that I have gotten, because that means the trend still stays the same. And I believe the trend is still the same because my weight change rate is still the same, no matter if it says I went from 28% down to 20%, or if that's adjusted downward to where it is now, 26 percent down to 17%, or whatever it ended up being. So if I go all the way back to that first measurement, which was, according to the Skulpt, 22.9%, adding 2.5% to that would make it, or 2.5 and change, because my first measure came after that weigh-in. So I would say I've gone in the 9 weeks from about 26% in that range down to 17.4, which is still a pretty sizable decrease. It's nearly 9%, which is pretty solid. And that means today my lean body mass, between lean tissue and bone and organ, all of that mass as well, which is not fat, totaled 152.5, which is 10 pounds up from where it was 9 weeks ago. And my fat mass, even though it's not quite as low as I thought it was, 32.2 pounds, which is 18 pounds lower than it was 9 weeks ago. So on the scale, I've lost 8 pounds total, but I've gained 10 pounds of muscle and lost 18 pounds of fat, which is good no matter which way you slice it. But it does shed light on some of my results. I may be in a bit too mild of a calorie deficit to encourage maximal adaptations, because over the 9 weeks, even though I have I have lost 8 or 9 pounds, whatever it has been. That's only been like 0.5% of body weight change per week, and ideally it's a little bit higher, maybe in the 0.7 to 1% body weight change per week. So at this point, I should be. I had the numbers here earlier, but I should be safely below 180, and right now I'm 184. And that's if I was nailing everything 100%, I'd be below 180 consistently, and I have been at times. And you'll see that if you go back through the vlogs, I have been under 180 for good chunks of time, as a matter of fact. But it should be at this point. I shouldn't be near 185 if I've been doing everything correctly. So what that means is I could probably afford to increase my deficit a little bit more, which, yay. And here I was thinking I was getting away with, oh, I'm dieting on almost 3,000 calories a day, and fair enough to say I was losing weight in the broad perspective. I was losing scale weight by eating nearly 3,000 calories on training days. It's not for rest days. But was it the optimal amount of weight change? No. So I ran some different numbers and figured out that I need to be eating closer to, let's see, I have closer to 2,700 calories on training days instead of 3,000, and that will allow me to create that deficit that would encourage that change, that proper weight change that I'm looking for, because everything should really be dictated by your weight change rate, because if you just look at your deficit or your surplus, that's not factoring in for adaptive thermogenesis, because all of the markers of your metabolism, whether that be your exercise-induced thermogenesis, your basal metabolic rate, your non-exercise-induced thermogenesis, your thermic effect of food, yada, 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 all that stuff, all of that trends downward in a deficit. So, and for some people, their metabolisms are more adaptive than others. Some people have a very static metabolism. So, if say you're eating 2,000 calories a day and that is your maintenance level, and you think you're going into a 20% deficit by dropping down to 1,600 calories, that may initially be that 20% drop, but your metabolism will eventually adapt downwards to decrease that margin. That's why you continually, most people need to continually drop calories in order to continue to drop weight. There are some people who have a very static metabolism where like you could drop them 100 calories and they will lose weight consistently. And in reverse, very static in terms of gaining weight as well. You only need a very mild surplus and around the same rate to consistently gain weight. But it looks like I have a pretty adaptive metabolism. So I'm going to have to adapt my intake accordingly. And it will just be a slightly more aggressive deficit, even though I am planning on training daily. And I am having some withdrawals, not going to the gym in the last 2 days. It does kind of suck. But that's nobody's fault but my own, because I've been making a big deal about genetic potential lately. Body composition factors into genetic potential a little bit in terms of giving you a gauge on how close you are to it. I would say at this body fat percentage, I'm still a good 10% away from my genetic potential, which means I'm still like firmly in intermediate, and that was confirmed the other day when I went in the gym, and I was trying to up my training frequency for every body part, and it's just not something that my personal recovery ability has the ability to do right now, and blew out my shoulder when I was dumbbell benching. Luckily, it's just a strain, and I have a lot more, still kind of sucks, a lot more range of motion in my shoulder now as I did a couple days ago, but it still needs the rest and the ice. But yeah, that's why genetic potential and training status are important, and that's how body composition ties into genetic potential, because there are some calculators online, or I have a calculator through the Bayesian Bodybuilding Personal Training course that I have graduated from and I'm taking again, where you could use your body fat percentage as a metric to help you determine what your genetic potential may be and where you are in relation to that genetic potential, and see how far you have to go to close that gap. So yeah, implications going forward: bigger deficit, just something that I have to monitor. I'm toying with the idea of changing my training time to accommodate more meals within the anabolic window period after training, because since I am so firmly in the intermediate category, I thought I was approaching advanced, but that's really not the story. And it's not the point to get overzealous and to just trick yourself into thinking you're advanced. You have to honor where you currently are, and that's what I plan on doing. So if my anabolic window, or the period where my protein synthesis is elevated for longer than I expected, it would make a little bit more sense to incorporate more food in that time period. So if I move my workout earlier in the day, maybe by a couple hours, that might allow me to better match the time course of the increased protein synthesis with protein itself. So toying with that idea, we'll see how that goes. And last note, this anecdotally might explain why I noticed that the higher the proportion of fats in my diet, in general, the better, a little bit better I felt and looked aesthetically, because I wasn't holding as much water weight from the carbohydrate. And now that I know I'm at this high of a body fat percentage, that could explain things a little bit better, because in general, the higher your body fat percentage, the lower your carbohydrate tolerance. So I probably don't need quite as many of those, and there was a good chunk of time recently where I was eating, nearly 300 grams of carbs a day, which is probably not the right move for me. I could probably be better served, um, eating somewhere closer to 200, 240, somewhere in that neighborhood, and not in the 290, 300 range. Um, so yeah, that's why something like a DEXA scan is very valuable. I'm really excited that I went and got it. And like I said, the trend is still the trend. I've still lost scale weight, gained muscle mass, lost body fat. It's just instead of the trend being down here where I thought it was, it just shifted up 2.5%. And I'm like I said, still going to use this if it stays consistently low is still consistent. I just know to shift things up by 2.5% to get a better estimate. Um, and yeah, more fats, bigger deficit. Still using this guy. Um, Knowing your body composition can help you determine your training status. And yeah, hopefully this has been a little bit informational to you. It has been to me, big time, and I hope to be getting more DEXA scans in the future. So yeah, hopefully this is not the last DEXA video that you'll see. And if you like this, go ahead, hit like, share, comment, whatever you may. If you've had a DEXA scan, or if you have had comparable, or you've had like a handheld device and it read something different than a DEXA, go ahead, share your experience. I'm all ears, and I definitely want to know if there are better methods of being able to track body composition outside of the 3.5 weeks where I go without the DEXA, because I do plan on getting it like once a month at this point. Yeah, all right, guys. So that was my day today, and we will talk soon.